Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I heard we're very strict on time, so I will start now. So, hope you had good lunch. Um, just to make sure you're in the right meeting room, our session is called Mitigation of Super Pollutants, Harnessing Multiple Co-Benefits for Air Quality, Health, Climate, Cryosphere, and Economy. We are organized by Clean Air Fund and GSZ CKAI. So, I'm happy to be here. My name is Monapa Pusambunwatana. I work for the project CKAI, Southeast Asia Climate and Clean Air Initiative under GSZ Thailand. I will be the moderator of today's session. So just for your consent, we will record some photos, videos here. No? If you do not give your consent, then please let us know. And okay, before we begin, I think okay, sorry. Maybe we can, I think you already attend many sessions here, but some housekeeping rules here, just so you know, keep your phones in silent mode, leave the room if you have a call, attending session when sick is discouraged, and food is not allowed inside the room. So also another reminder, there's one tab check-in in front of the meeting room. No, if you already done, then thank you. And if you're not, then please do it after our session is done. And let me introduce our session objectives a little bit before we go into our session. So we aim to exchange the benefits, practical solutions, current plan policies, and further cooperation to mitigate pollutants in South Asia and Southeast Asia. And we have 3 specific objectives for today. We want to demonstrate the multiple co-benefits of mitigating super pollutants, to highlight practical solutions and strengthen cooperation pathway in Asia, including examples from regional platforms and national government. Third, we want to catalyze finance and policy integration by connecting super pollutants action to climate finance with multilateral mechanisms. So at the end of the session, we hope that you all, the participants here, will get clear understanding of why super pollutant mitigation delivers the fastest, highest impact multiple co-benefits in this decade, actionable measures you can apply in your own work, and recognition of financing pathway that can support national and regional interventions. So this is the brief agenda of today. So after the opening remarks, we will have 5 experts to deliver talks about super pollutants in 5 different perspectives. So that would be science co-benefits, transboundary haze mitigation efforts, regional platform perspective, national implementation story, and fund mobilization for super pollutants mitigation. And then we will follow with panel discussion for 45 minutes and then closing remarks. So without further ado, I would like to invite Ms. Jen Burston, CEO of Clean Air Fund, to give the first opening remark. So the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, and good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining the session, and there's some seats down here at the front if you're just joining us, another one this side. Great to see the room so full, and very pleased to be hosting this session alongside GIZ. If you don't know us, the Clean Air Fund is a global philanthropic organisation committed to clean air for all. And we've been working in Asia for a long time and are now expanding our presence across the region. So one of the first countries that we set up in was India back when we began in 2019. In 2024, our board made the decision to expand our work into Indonesia, and most recently another board decision to support work regionally in Southeast Asia. Why Southeast Asia? Well, we don't need to talk here again about the scale of the challenge. I'm sure if you didn't know already, which most of us did, we've been hearing a lot about it over the last few days. But we also see massive opportunity in the region. First of all, because public demand for clean air is really strong. I know that here in Thailand, ahead of the elections in February, there was a poll that ranked clean air as the #1 public concern. And we're seeing this in a lot of countries in the region. Secondly, loads of really good examples of best practice, countries prioritizing air quality and making tangible steps to show what can be done. Third, we see very strong financial flows in the region. You will probably have heard from our State of Global Air Quality Funding report, the two biggest donors to outdoor air quality are the Asian Development Bank and the Japanese bilateral agency JICA. Together, they're 2/3 of all outdoor air quality funding globally. Most of the funding is also spent in the region. So the region does not suffer from it, whilst more money is always necessary, the region doesn't suffer from other regions in not having enough finance for infrastructure projects. And fourth, I think there's a much bigger appetite here to work on transboundary pollution than we see in other places, with strong regional cooperation and the frameworks to do it. So that's why we've chosen Southeast Asia as our next regional program, following from our Europe one. But today's focus is superpollutants, and it really is at the heart of the work of the Clean Air Fund, because everything that we do is targeted at both the health and the climate impact of reducing air pollution. And for superpollutants, that's where the same pollutant is both having the health-harming impact and also a direct impact on climate change, rather than just being co-emitted with greenhouse gases. We're working on black carbon and tropospheric ozone, but along with methane and HFCs, half of the global warming that we have experienced to date is because of superpollutants. And we know also that because they don't spend very long in the atmosphere, the quicker we can reduce them, the quicker they will impact on climate change, which is why they've come to be known as the emergency brake on climate change. They've got the potential to avoid more than 0.5 degrees of warming by 2050, as well as millions of premature deaths. So that's the topic of today's session. We're really excited because we're seeing a lot of momentum around superpollutants, especially coming from the climate space, but also in health spaces. So we've seen on methane already, the global methane pledge, more than 100 countries signed up, more than $1 billion raised towards executing on that. And we want to see the same for other superpollutants. At COP30, along with the SLICAN Trust and in partnership with CCAC and others, we developed an announcement with 9 countries on black carbon specifically, new commitments from them, and the commitment to share plans. And we want to see something similar also on tropospheric ozone. So we're committed to supporting all of this work as a funder and a partner and a convener. And it's really, really great to be here with you and GIZ today. And I'm really looking forward to the discussion. Thank you.
So thank you very much, Khun Jen. So next, let me invite Mr. Alvaro Zurita. He's the team leader of CKI project under GIZ Thailand. So the floor is yours.
Thank you. Good afternoon, dear participants, dear experts, colleagues, friends. It's a pleasure to join you here at the BAQ. Although these are difficult times, some people on the planet have decided that science doesn't matter anymore. And among many other things that are pushing the humanity and the planet to its limits. No? But a conference like the BAQ, at least for me, I don't know how you feel, restores hope. We've seen in these 2 days, no, it's so inspiring. We've seen hundreds, I don't know how many people are joining, but more than, I think, 1,000 people from private sector, government, NGOs, civil society, academia, gathering at this place at the UN Conference Center, committed to discuss and find solutions to air pollution, defying and finally, hopefully, defeating the power of ignorance with power of collaboration, of knowledge and of scientific evidence. Dear participants, there is hope. So on behalf of GIZ, I would like to give you a warm welcome to this session on superpollutants. Why superpollutants? I already explained a few more words. There is scientific evidence that that for slowing down the global warming, it's not enough to cut the CO2 emissions. No? This alone will not be enough. We have to work on the superpollutants. Almost half of it contribute to the SLCP contribute to half of the global warming. When we talk about SLCP, we're talking about black carbon, methane, ozone, and HFCs. The impact of these pollutants are visible across Asia already. Beyond affecting the air we breathe, they damage crops, ecosystems, and livelihoods. Researchers show that agricultural productivity can decline by up to 15% due to the SLCP emissions. There are economic consequences. In heavily affected regions, the combined impact of air pollution can cost up to 7, 8, even 9 of the national GDP, reflecting healthcare cost, lost productivity, and environmental damage. I didn't read this in a McDonald's flyer. This is scientific. There's scientific evidence. So the good news is that many solutions to reduce super pollutants exist already, and they deliver immediate solutions. This is precisely where the Southeast Asia Climate and Clean Air Initiative, SECAI, the project that we are carrying out in this region, contributes. SECAI is implemented by GIZ. SECAI is funded by the German government and by the Swiss government, by Switzerland, SDC. We will have the closing remarks from our colleague Philippe from SDC. And we will discuss about this, not only about this project, but this project and many other initiatives during this session, and in which we are bringing together science, policy, finance, and regional cooperation platforms. I hope our discussions today will strengthen collaboration, mobilize new partnerships, and identify concrete opportunities for funding and scale-up solutions across the region. So I'm looking forward to exciting inputs and discussions. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you very much, Kun Alvaro. And maybe I invite both of you maybe back to the seat so that we can continue with our session with the speakers afterwards. Yes, for our next session, we are pleased to hear from our 5 distinguished experts who bring in their knowledge and experiences in superpollutant mitigation. They will share insights from their work on reducing short-lived climate pollutants, tackling air pollution, and advancing climate solutions. So let us begin with our first speaker, Mr. Ram Lal Verma, Science Manager, Superpollutants Clean Air Fund. I will introduce your bio a little bit before you join me. So Dr. Ram Lal Verma is a Science Manager Superpollutants at Clean Air Fund, leading science-driven initiatives on superpollutants, including black carbon. With nearly 2 decades of experience in air pollution and climate change, he works at the science policy interface to translate research into actionable policy pathways. So Dr. Verma, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Monappa, and good afternoon, everyone. I hope you will not sit, you will not sleep after that heavy lunch. But okay. So I will be just talking a few minutes on how the science can help to, show the pathway to mitigate superpollutants with a strong co-benefits. So let's go to. So the superpollutants are basically a non-CO2 climate forcers, which have the significant impacts of the climate, as well as some of the pollutants having the health impacts. And these all together, the superpollutants, contributing about half of the global warming. So I just got a little bit of effects of the superpollutant. For example, the black carbon is contributing about 0.07 warming as per the last IPCC report, which causing like 39% of the glacier melting, including 10% of glacier melting in the Himalayan region and Tibeto Plateau. And it's also strongly melting or amplifying the Arctic region, so it's losing the glaciers. And because of this black carbon, it's basically a part of the PM 2.5. It's contributing to millions of the premature death, and including a lot of respiratory and heart diseases. And it's also black carbon can increase the risk of the extreme rainfall events and such as the floods. In case of the tropospheric ozone, which contributing the 0.23 global warming, it's causing the loss of the 0.5 trillion economy loss every year, also contributing to over 500,000 premature death every year. and then also causing around 26% of the um, global yield loss yearly, and with all together also the ecology about the 11%. So if you see this one, most of the effects are in the South and Southeast Asia on the agriculture production. Okay, sorry. Oh, it's moving. No, not this one, right? Middle one.
On the right.
Okay, thank you. So in case of the emissions, the most of the emissions are so for example, in East Asia and Southeast Asia, it's coming from the residential sector, and in the other part, different sectors contributing. And or also in case of the tropospheric ozone, there are lots of sectors which contributing their precursors. For example, the energy building, transport, power, agriculture. So all the precursors of ozone, like NO2, CO, VOCs, and methane. So emissions estimates basically provide a science-based information for sectoral intervention to reduce the black carbon and tropospheric ozone precursors. What we are contributing as a CAF. So in 2014, we launched a multi-billion US dollar program on the black carbon to fill some of the research gaps, to build the kind of momentum to address the black carbon issue globally, and to establish or to bring consensus among the policymakers and the scientific community on the impacts of black carbon. And we publish a number of policy brief and reports. For tropospheric ozone, we launched in COP29 in 2024 the policy brief on case for the action on tropospheric ozone. And last year in June, we published a roadmap to address the tropospheric ozone globally. And now we are trying to mobilize resources to address the tropospheric ozone issues in globally, but most focus will be Southeast Asia and South Asia, because the most of the impacts are in this region. So till we have under the black carbon program, we are focusing on reducing the uncertainties in climate impacts of black carbon, improving the emission estimates, and also advancing the understanding on the regional impacts of black carbon, and to develop the policy pathways, and also building a base for the health impacts, mostly relative to the PM 2.5, and also build the consensus among the scientific community and policymakers on the climate and health impacts of black carbon. And nearly we are implementing more than 30 projects on the actions, advocacy, communication, science, and events. And in South Asia, Asian region, we have around this number of projects basically on science and advocacy and communication. Oh, sorry. So thank you so much. And these are some key reports we have published last 2-3 years. Thank you so much. I'm on time?
Yes. Thank you very much. Our speaker has a tough job. They have to finish everything in 5 minutes. So he has done a very good job. And for our next speaker, maybe it's a short remark that we will have timekeeping guy at the back, Kun Ekachai. So please feel free to look at him about the timekeeper. So our talk 2, it's about transboundary hate mitigation efforts by Kun Patrick Booker. So Kun Patrick is a planning officer at GIZ, specializing in air quality management, greenhouse gas mitigation, including XLCPs, and environmental impact assessments. He currently serves as senior technical advisor to CKI project, which is funded by Germany's Ministry of Economic Cooperation and Development, or BMZ, and Swiss Agency for Development and Cooperation, or SDC. So Kun Patrick, the floor is yours.
Thanks a lot. Good afternoon as well from my side. We have some nice music. Okay, so I would like to give you an overview this afternoon about how a project on the mitigation of short-lived climate pollutants or super pollutants could look like, and how it could link from the regional to the sub-regional to the national level. So very much a kind of vertical integration. We heard it before, it's a project funded by the German and Swiss government, but I will come to that in a moment. I think, okay, so I think we've seen this and heard this before, so I will be quite quick on this one. We have a problem with various super pollutants in the region. On the left-hand side, you can see PM2.5 emissions during the course of the year. On the right-hand side, methane. By looking into reducing short-lived climate pollutants in the region with this project, mainly focusing on PM2.5, we have a direct effect on the reduction of black carbon, and we have a direct effect as well on the reduction of precursor emissions of ozone. So this is what we're going to focus on. Methane will be partly covered by the project as well, but we are mainly focusing really on reducing emissions from agricultural burning, so it's mainly about PM2.5. So here, I mean, most of you will know this, by looking into PM2.5 reduction, really we are focusing mainly on black carbon, a reduction of black carbon, the component of PM2.5 that does have a climate effect. And I should say as well at this point that we have a project by our French colleagues looking into better monitoring of black carbon in the region. It's a project funded by the French government. It's called SOTC, and they look really into a better monitoring of black carbon in the region, which I think will be a good addition to this project and to the region, actually. So how would an ideal case look like in terms of regional approaches to air quality management or super pollutant management in the region? So the ideal case would be really we have good regional coordination, for example, clear sky strategy, which we have here in the region. So this is between Thailand, Laos and Myanmar. And for example, ASEAN roundtables, I should mention that our project is an ASEAN project, so we are working in very close collaboration with ASEAN on this one. We would need a regional monitoring system, so it would be based on satellite and ground-based air quality data, transparent data and information system. I think this is rather important. We have heard this earlier this week, that we need a better regional coordination and management of data. So we need some sort of data information exchange platform, like, for example, AQMX. Financial incentives, so what are really good approaches to actually lead to long-term investment, and we have been asked to, for example, look into the ASEAN Investment Framework, AIF. Politically sensitive governance, so really who are the key players, who are the players we should work with to actually make sure that whatever we suggest and whatever we pilot will be taken up. And we have been asked, for example, to work quite closely with the ASEAN Agreement on Transboundary Haze Pollution. And then we need a transition both because we are focusing not on the urban but the rural problems, so to speak, of super pollutants. So we need an agriculture, forestry, and waste transition. So this is the ideal case. This is basically what we've been asked to tackle. Of course, we can only tackle some aspects of this within the new project. So the new project hasn't officially started. We're still waiting at the moment for ASEAN to actually sign up, to give us green light. But we have 3 different levels: regional, sub-regional, national, policy support on the regional level, promotion of SLCP or super pollutant mitigation at the greater Mekong sub-region level, working, for example, with the clear sky strategy there, and then national support, really looking into piloting ideas in the countries of Cambodia, Thailand, and Laos. And then just to give you some ideas, so this is really what we started already, despite not having had the green light yet. So we've had on the regional level quite a bit of exchange with ASEAN, with the ASEAN Secretariat, with the haze-free roadmap people to make sure that whatever we do is supporting the haze-free roadmap. And we had as well first discussions with the ASEAN investment framework. On the sub-regional level, we have been working with the people looking into clear sky strategy development. We had a first consultation with a transboundary working group, Mekong working group, on haze mitigation, webinars, and we have been identifying first ideas for pilot activities in those 3 countries. And at this time, I have to stop here and hand over to the moderator again. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much, Khun Patrick. If you have questions, maybe we will have the Q&A after our panel discussion. No? Please keep your questions in mind first. So our next talk. Okay. Next talk 3, we have regional platform perspective from Dr. Pasarathi Mahapatra. He holds the role of Intervention Manager Air Pollution Mitigation at the International Center of Integrated Mountain Development, or ECMOD. He is an accomplished environmental scientist and air quality expert with 15 years of experience in multidisciplinary in environmental research, policy advising, knowledge management, and program implementation across South and Southeast Asia. So, Dr. Pass, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Nice music around. So the reason why I'm here today is to explain about how advancing regional cooperation is important with a case study of IGP-HF region and through our science policy finance dialogue that we champion in the region. So hopefully, yes. So I like to start with this particular slide. So if you can see, this is the third pole, if you see here. So in the third pole, which is affected by globally some billion number of people around. So this is why we need to work in the region, and air quality is one of the most important aspects. You can see why in this region. So you can see the number of people or population affected by it, and its global comparison on the right hand side. And another slide which says that how many good number of days and bad number of days have been seen in this region in different countries. So this is the reason why we have to look after air pollution and concomitantly super pollutants, because both of them have a shared source of emissions. So our role in ECMOD is to generate evidence as well as support the policymakers with implementing policies and governance. So what we do at ECMOD is generate some tangible evidences for the policymakers to try to do a evidence-based implementation plan. So if you see here, we have a regional dashboard where we show air quality for the region. We have a 2-day forecasting system. And we also showcase what sort of episodic events happen during, either forest fire period, during, winter seasons, during crop residue burning seasons, which affect the region in different ways. Then the other aspect of, particularly black carbon and ozone, what we do there. So if you see, is there a highlighter? Not sure. So if you see here, one of the publications that we have is right on the black carbon monitoring at the level of 4,900 meters above sea level. So the third pole are the glaciers here. So we have a station right at 5,000 meters elevation, which says us how much black carbon is being deposited there. So that is the reason why we do generating evidence for black carbon and ozone. Then how we try to get it implemented. So we have a series of science policy dialogues through which we get these to the policy makers. The evidence is shown to the policy makers, and then they take informed decisions about it. So quickly I'll show you what sort of informed decisions they take. So we have robust national plans with regional alignment in this particular region. So this is the strategy that we take. Probably in the panel discussion I might be able to explain a bit more. And how we are trying to advance it is through an integrated approach of air quality and SLCP management together in the region, especially for Bhutan as a case study here. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So that was our talk 3. So our next talk would be on the national level, no? National implementation story. Um, we have Dr. Silapong Sukthavi Nakha. He is an environmentalist at the senior professional level and head of Standardization and Laboratory Subdivision at Department of Climate Change and Environment, the Ministry of National Resource and Environment of Thailand. So he specializes in air quality, atmospheric modeling, and climate variability, and integrating these disciplines to support national climate policy. So, Dr. Silapong, the floor is yours.
Um, Good afternoon, everyone. Distinguished guests. So, I'm Silapong Sukthavi. I'm from the Department of Climate Change and Environment. Firstly, let me introduce our department. Department of Climate Change and Environment, DCCE. We are the focal point of Thailand in the climate change issue. We have a 6 division: adaptation, mitigation, participation, promotion, and also research center. So let's move to the climate change and super pollutant. I think that all experts that mentioned before that super pollutants such as methane, also black carbon, ozone. So this is enhance climate change impact, but for not only greenhouse gases or CO2 or something like that. For Thailand to report greenhouse gas emission, we follow the IPCC guideline, as you know, 2006 refinement and supplementary in 2013 and 2019. In 2027, IPCC will launch the report on short-lived climate forcer, so that these pollutants will be focused under Climate Change Act of Thailand, follow the IPCC guideline. The next issue for the relation or co-benefit linkage between climate change and air quality. So that I think sometimes some situation may be make the opposite management pathway. I mean that when we talk about air quality or the researcher related to air pollution, something like that, we start from the poor ambient air quality, also focus on the standard value, national standard value, something like that, and then go beyond to the source file, how they are transboundary from transportation sector. But in the opposite way, for the climate change view, we know that we have to reduce how much greenhouse gas emitted. We never see that how much linkage between short-lived climate forcer or super air pollutant related to greenhouse gas, how much that bring country to achieve 1.5 or 2 degrees Celsius. That is something that I was to mention in view of climate change department. So for our work now, we develop the national gas reporting and inventory system that collect data in Thailand. In the next phase, we try to combine the methane emission or other pollutant into the system. Also, we try to connect to other departments in Thailand, such as pollution control department, industrial department, to get or to link the emission database, like a PRTR system in Thailand, and then make a MRV system to verify system under the Climate Change Act. So for the progress, as I mentioned, that the system related to inventory, the next is the integration of multiple emission datasets. Our center and our department try to investigate some different data, such as satellite data, or reanalysis data from as a source, also compared to the bottom-up approach. But mostly we know that the amount of many kind of data close together. But in terms of climate change, we look for the long term, such as 30 years. But I see some point during the time series. May I see the difference of trend or change point. Some data sets show increasing after 2013, something like that. Some data sets reduce, so that we need harmonization data first. So the last one, we collect together to have climate change information center to publish the data to the user. The last one is challenge and opportunity. Very important, Climate Change Act, Clean Air Act, PRTR Act, that will bring us to coordinate to other agencies to make a linkage between air quality and climate change. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Dr. Silapong. So, continuing our talk, we have talk 5, fund mobilization for super pollutants mitigation. We have Dr. Clyde Hutchinson. He is a senior technology specialist at the ADB Korea Climate Technology Hub of Asia Development Bank, where he connects the climate technology needs of developing member countries with leading solution providers. He has worked across 5 continents supporting innovation, investment, and technology scaling. So, Dr. Clyde, the floor is yours.
I feel like I'm the cabaret act when the music comes on. So I'm going to spend the next 6 minutes going through my various musical capabilities. But first of all, let's talk about waste to wheels and how ADB is driving pollutant reduction. In terms of ADB, I'm going to talk about 3 main areas. I'm not going to talk about ozone, but I'm going to talk about methane, black carbon, and HFCs. And here's where we are mainly involved. So within methane, it's looking at reduction in landfills, but also wastewater and agriculture. In black carbon, it's looking at, again, reducing biomass burning, coal, and also urban diesel fleets. And in FSCs, we're seeing more and more demand in cooling and looking at how you reduce HFCs in cooling. So, important bit. How does ADB support? In terms of financing, there's the traditional sovereign loans and grants. Then there's the non-loan sovereign loans, which are the borrowing which we give to private sector. Also then, more and more, we're looking at blending finance. So how do we crowd in and get investment involved? And finally, how can we make investments pay for themselves by producing reductions or other innovative finance mechanisms? ADB has also been very much strong, working with a number of partners in this room, looking at policy. So how do we look at reforms which enable changes in heating and cooling? Lots and lots of work has been done in municipal solid waste, but also now we're seeing more and more attention in cooling. So cooling is becoming a very priority, but also looking at how we get directly involved in urban planning to help integrate low carbon systems. ADB is very keen on technical assistance and also looking at feasibility and bankable pilots. And these bankable pilots need to be scalable. And how do we scale those to other regions? One of the areas which I'm seeing a lot of advance in, and a previous speaker has also brought into that point, is we're seeing more and more interest in MRV, monitoring systems, and integrations of new potential with AI. Also looking at developing of novel and interesting business models, such as cooling as a service, but also how do we make sure that this knowledge is transferred and we're building capacity. So I'm across all sector groups. So ADB is mainly divided in 4 sector groups. These sector groups, here's the kind of projects which we're seeing in terms of reducing super pollutants. So in energy, we're seeing clean heating and district energy and cooling. Efficiency upgrades, so smart controls, are using definitely digital solutions, but also looking at how we can reduce the role of black carbon, and also how do we onboard more grid and renewables to reduce, again, the need for black carbon. Transportation is vitally important, and the building of e-mobility infrastructure, and also reduce carbon from diesel. Water and urban is really focused around waste to energy, wastewater, landfill diversion. We're again looking at methane reduction. So I'm going to quickly run through some projects which should serve as some inspiration of ADB supported projects. This is one of the projects in China which we were doing in Suzhou. And again, is looking at diverting waste from municipal landfill, but also this is an interesting project because it has actively involved private sector investment. In the Maldives, again, we're reducing landfill combustions, but also this is an interesting project because it's seen a decrease in the burning of waste. Another project in Laos, again, this is a mixed use project, again, wastewater, but also involved in generating better solid waste collection, which means the reduction of methane. In terms of black carbon, one of the projects which in China, again, for carbon, but also being involved in helping urban air quality. Transportation is a big area. Again, it's really focused around e-mobility, buses, and you can see examples here from Karachi, from Davao, but also in Bishkek in Kyrgyz Republic. And in Qingdao in China, this is one of the new projects which we're seeing more and more attention. Reducing low carbon, but also reducing TFCs in cooling. So here's the kind of in direction of ADB. Again, a lot of work in terms of diversion of methane from waste systems, but also more and more we're seeing the need for digital solutions, and also we're very promising seeing that the challenges around potentially using AI to benefit and really leapfrog the challenges. I wouldn't be in a crowded room without doing a little bit of sales job for what I do. So my role within ADB is one of the most funnest jobs in ADB. I'm the matchmaker. So I try to match technologies and also funding for projects. This is our website, so we're supported by the Korean government, but also here's my email. So if you have projects, you have solutions, or you're looking at how you can integrate better with ADB, please contact me. I'm always happy to help. Thank you.
Thank you. พี่หมอค่ะ would be grateful if you contact the staff about the mic. Maybe the mic is not working well after this. So yes, thank you so much to our speakers. To continue our conversation, I am happy to invite all speaker backs at the front so we can explore how we can work together to drive multiple core benefits through the mitigation of super pollutants. And in this regard, we'll also invite Ms. Jane Burston to be our panel moderator as well. So the speakers, please go to your seats here and continue our conversation with the panel discussion. Yes. I'm not sure if you want to use them. I'll just use
Thank you. So I'm excited to dig a little deeper. It's really, really great to hear about all of the solutions that you're working on. And 5 minutes was absolutely not long enough to hear the detail of more about what you want to tell us about what you're doing, but also I want to investigate a little bit what do you think needs to be done next? If you had a magic wand and you could wave it with some wishes, what would be on your agenda? So I'll ask you to keep your responses quite brief. I know we've only got probably 2 minutes per answer, just to make sure that we can hear from all of you, and also that we've got some time for audience Q&A. So if any of you thought of any questions as the presentations were being made, please do prepare them, and I hope that we can come to you shortly. So my first question is to Verma, starting with the kind of scientific base. And I wondered, great to hear of everything that your team has been doing. Where do you see further science being necessary to understand the benefits of reducing superpollutants?
Okay, we have enough data. We have robust evidence, scientific evidence to work or to plan for the mitigation. For example, as I showed one of these slides, like the climate impacts of superpollutants are well known. Of course, there is a problems in uncertainties, but we have enough information, enough scientific evidence to just to know the climate impacts of superpollutants, which have the benefits in near-term climate mitigation. We have the impacts on the black carbon impacts on the health, which like respiratory disease, cardiovascular disease, and it's contributing basically along with the tropospheric ozone, 8 million plus premature death each year. So we have the health impacts. In case of tropospheric ozone, I showed one of the slides that the impacts of ozone on the agriculture production is quite significant. So largely we have the enough scientific evidence to act. But there are issues which need to be further investigated. For example, if the time is there, so for example, the climate forcing of black carbon. If you see the climate forcing of black carbon history, like 10 years or now, it's quite reduced. And the last IPCC report has really reduced the climate forcing of black carbon to 1.5, and with large uncertainty, which really confused the policymakers whether act or not. So we need to reduce the uncertainty. We need to like more do the modeling work with more observation. Regarding the toxicity, although there are evidences that the black carbon having the greater toxicity than the PM 2.5 mass, but we need more evidence that the black carbon really impacting the health compared to whole PM 2.5 mass. Of course, WHO is making assessment on this issue, and we will see the reports like in the few years. And one more thing which we need, we have global evidences. We know the climate forcing and everything, but we need local evidence because policymakers need a local evidence to act. And at the country level, we do not have enough information on the superpollutant to act. One more important, which is sorry,
Your very last one.
Only 1 point. One more important thing: policymakers need the cost. How much cost is needed? I mean, the impact is causing. So we need the matrix. We need the societal cost to impact. Of course, there are other regions, but okay, I stop here.
Thank you. Maybe someone will ask you a kind question about what other things you think would be on your wish list. But that's super clear. So the toxicity, the more on the health impact, which the WHO is working on, climate impact, uncertainty, local evidence, and cost. So Patrick, I wanted to ask you a little bit more about what you were saying on regional cooperation for the management of superpollutants. Great to hear what's being done. What more do you think is needed?
Yeah, I think we've been asked actually by our funders to really look into this regional collaboration, because we all know, pollution doesn't stop at national boundaries. So a little bit based on our experience from Europe, I think we would like to bring the message across together with our political partners that there is a regional approach needed for really for real improvement in pollution. And I think it is quite important to really strengthen regional collaboration there and to strengthen what is already there. So I think we don't need any new networks, but we do have, especially in this region, we have some rather strong networks. We have the Malé Declaration, for example, looking at South Asia. We have the ASEAN network, right? So the problem is really that we haven't seen a lot of implementation and a change for the better. And I think it is really rather important to make sure that the different countries in the region are finally starting to work together on a common goal. So I think ideally we would have a kind of regional declaration, so a bit similar to what we have in Europe and North America, for example, the Convention on Long-Range Transboundary Air Pollution. It would be very good to have something similar over here. So we would like to contribute to something like that, which hopefully could be established during the next 5 to 10 years. There are some problems, political problems as well, as we all know, but we had them as well in Europe, so I think there's a good chance that this could happen actually. Thank you.
Thank you. That's a very concrete suggestion. I would be very interested, not right now, but if we have time to come back to you on what do you think is the next step to getting that very concrete goal established. But coming next to Path, also on kind of regional cooperation, you've got the platform for science and policy and finance dialogue for air quality management in the region that you were talking about, the Indo-Gangetic Plain and Himalayan foothills. And how are you seeing, how do you think regional collaboration on superpollutants will advance?
Thanks, Jane. So in this particular science policy finance dialogue, what we try to do is we take a two-pronged approach. One is robust national strategies for regional alignment, and two is integrated strategies. So where we try to work with air pollutants and climate pollutants such as black carbon, methane, ozone. So in these particular science policy finance dialogues, we try to bring it up together like 4 or 5 member countries. They can come together, they can learn from each other. A significant I would say advantage of this particular dialogue has been learning by sharing, where countries who are at different stages of managing their air quality in the region get to learn from each other, from who have done better, what were the hurdles that they had faced, and how it can be done better. So that has been, I think, one of the good achievements here. And the second aspect is learning from these particular science policy finance dialogues. Countries like Nepal, Bhutan, they have come up with requirements to develop national strategies. Specifically in Bhutan, we are trying to develop an integrated strategy for them, for national strategy for clean air as well as the super pollutant roadmaps. So this is how we are trying to work in the region, and we believe that science policy finance dialogue plays a important role for looking forward. And yes, the final word on finance, which has been one of the most important aspects. So in this particular region, what happens is there has been a lot of hit and trial in many advanced countries. So people really get to know how finance can be articulated. A lot of finance is present within the nations, not from outside of the country. So how to manage that particular finance? So convergence of funds, like you have sectoral finances for the transport department, for the waste segregation department, for other departments. So in this regards, India has done a wonderful job by doing a convergence financing. So that is how we can take this message to the nearby regional countries and try to see what can be done better. So I think I'll stop here for the time being.
Thank you. Yeah, super interesting, because we hear a lot about the kind of the point that you made around best practice and challenge sharing and what countries can learn from one another. But very good to hear that they're also developing integrated strategies on air pollution and super pollutants. So I don't know whether you want to reflect on this point from Thailand's perspective, Sirapong. Do you have a national strategy combining the two, and how optimistic are you that Thailand will be able to substantially reduce super pollutants?
So thank you for your question. That for management point of our view for super air pollutant, I think that it is very important because it enhances climate change impact. That for the policy. So our mandate is to report emission to national community, like that after implementation of Climate Change Act, so that we will focus on the air pollution, especially for super pollutants, black carbon, ozone, and also, like as I mentioned before, we try to make a system that collect on data, not only greenhouse gases. We prepare for the super air pollutants also, but some point that I concern and I try to investigate. After IPCC launched the 2027 report that now in Thailand we have some emission inventory like ammonia or assertive climate pollutant or fossil, but how the data that we have, how different in terms of methodology between our establishment and IPCC in next year, so that we have to revise whether or not. So this is some time that we have to focus and prepare.
For the point that you're making there, it's that the IPCC is coming out with some guidance within the next year, and you'll need to make sure that your emissions inventory matches whatever they're recommending. Very interesting. Good point also on the collection of data, because I think for super pollutants, one of the speakers mentioned, I can't remember who it was, the lack of black carbon monitoring. I think the same is also true of tropospheric ozone. So that can also be another challenge. So coming to Clyde, and thinking about your particular plans on super pollutant mitigation, is there anything else that you want to tell us? I'm sure everybody in the room is interested. What more financing will you do? Are there any calls coming out? How can we access your funding?
That's why I'm hiding in the corner.
There's no hiding in this panel. It's either that or you sing to the lounge music. You choose.
It's 50-50. No, I think, as you pointed out, that ADB is very committed to this area, and it's cross-sectoral, and there's a number of initiatives ongoing. So I think it's really important that several of the points which have been brought up are very key, and it's around about how do we take examples from different regions and how do we make them scalable. And I think that's one of the points which we see in our hub, is how do we actually see what is successful, what is working, and how do we make it scalable. In terms of data is becoming critical, and data is becoming really the key aspect in a lot of these projects. And it's very important, especially for me, is that how do we make sure that we're getting the technologies and the funding to the places we need them? Because I'm going to say something that's probably a little bit controversial. There's no challenge with technology, and there's no challenge with funding. So what is going wrong here? Why can't we get these programs underway? And that's part of my job, is how do we match make both the funding and the technology. So as I said, I have a fun job, because it's not very difficult, because there's technology and funding, but the challenge is how do we get implementable? How do we take pilots away from being pilots, and how do we scale them? And those are the challenges which we have.
And given you a super succinct, I'm coming to you immediately with a very quick follow-up question. When you say that data is a key aspect in the projects, you mean you will fund the collection of data, or people need to bring data before you can bring investment? Briefly.
I'm going to be diplomatic for the first time in my life. That's the project to project basis. But what we're seeing is increasing benefit of Earth observation data, which is, there's a lot of providers. Obviously, we're seeing lots of really good solid work done by GEMS across the region. We're seeing with Sentinel and the European Space Agency, we're seeing there's a lot of availability of data. We're seeing now opportunities with AI to make this accessible and easy to produce. We're seeing potential for providing not only simulation models, but also digital twins and other aspects around that. So we're seeing that is a real key, but also with MRV, it's really, really crucial that we have good data so that we're able to see the effectiveness and the impact of these projects, which then will lead to further and better mobilization of funds.
Thank you. And everybody has been very succinct, actually. So we have time for another round for each of you before we open up to the audience. Verma, you finished up there on telling us about governments need information about the costs of action. Did you want to dig a little bit deeper on exactly what you mean there?
Yes, actually, we need information like the societal cost, as well as like how much tons of emissions, like 1 ton of emission costs how much in terms of the impacts, like health impacts, climate impacts, other impacts. So yeah, we need some kind of local data to support the policymakers. Yeah, we have we have high confidence that we have enough scientific data to support the policies. For example, black carbon, tropospheric ozone precursors. But we need a kind of sectoral data. We need the region-wise, because solutions cannot be implemented globally, but we need a scientific evidences on the sectors, regions, even the cities. So, like for example, if you remember a few years ago, CCSE published a 25 solutions of the, and recently CCSE is doing further narrowing down. If Professor Dr. Jig Clement is here, he's shown 15 solutions. So there are the evidences are coming, but we need further narrow down to the local level or the country level so that the policymakers can act on. And we need, like, in terms of the money that we need, okay, if policymakers try to make a policy, how much benefit he can get. So that's we need, I think, for the most cost-effective solutions, cost-effective solutions we need to propose. We have, like, for example, in terms of how much mass, how much the amount is emitting from the transport sector, how much emitting from the industry, biomass burning, and also we need to prioritize the, like for example, BC PM 2.5 ratio. When we talk about the health impacts, we need to have like BC sulfate ratio, BC organic ratio when we talk about the climate impacts of black carbon. So, like for example, diesel emissions from the road transport or the off-road transport, where we have a lot of black carbon. So where the BC OC or BC sulfate ratio comes into play to decide which sector to be focused, and also the amount of the pollutants that's coming from it.
Thank you. Yeah, it's something we most frequently get asked is, what are the top 10 things that I should do? Or what's the McKinsey cost curve for air quality? And obviously it's a lot harder to do because multiple pollutants, it depends where you emit some of them as to what their climate impact would be. So I can see how hard that one is and why it hasn't been done yet. Okay. Patrick, so I would love to hear, putting you on the spot, what you think is the next step on a regional declaration, and also what kind of challenges you foresee for regional cooperation on superpollutants in Southeast Asia.
I think we've heard during the last days quite often this term of carrot and stick approach, really looking into sectors. And I think we need a carrot and stick approach as well for policymakers. So I think, right, I think it's quite important to bring the message across why there is a huge benefit in actually looking into regional solutions, right? And I think to be able to do this, we have to demonstrate that, for example, looking into best practice sharing, data sharing is so important, because only if you have robust information, robust data, you will be able to develop robust policies as well. And I think transboundary policies are really needed in this region, right? We need to make sure that we have a kind of level capacity building as well across all countries. So I think there is a clear benefit, a narrative as well we can demonstrate to policymakers why it would be a good idea to really look into kind of regional approaches and maybe a regional declaration. This is I would call the carrot part. The stick part of it is, I think we need as well still a better awareness raising among the lay public in the region to actually push policymakers into actually acting on air pollution. We haven't seen any real improvement in air quality in the region. And I think you can see, for example, in Thailand, that there are more and more parts of the public who actually demand better air. But still, in the region, a lot of people are not aware of this. And I think we have to look as well into some specifics of the super pollutants, right? So everyone knows about particulate matter, but ozone, we discussed it a little bit during the last days. Ozone does have a huge health effect. It does have an effect on agricultural productivity. And I think we have to bring this message across to inform really the public so that they can push the policymakers to actually instill some action.
Thanks. Yes, it's an interesting point you make about information sharing. I think people learn best from their neighbours. They can see the context is relatively similar, and it's much easier to share within a region often. Parth, similar question to you about regional cooperation and how you see the future of agreements or working together on transboundary pollution.
Let's say for the region where I was talking about Indo-Gangetic Plains and the Himalayan foothill regions. So if the countries, could come together voluntarily to, come together as a cooperation platform, probably that could be one way to look at it. So, and in that, we could define 3 different working groups, say thematic working group on monitoring and modeling, thematic working group on solutions, and another thematic working group on financing, which is, one of the strongest pillar, I would say, and essential pillars. So there, the people could have a structure where, representatives, say experts, scientists, and, policymakers could be spread across all these 3 groups. And then, they could come out with a better science approach, say a good decision support system, the Sherpa tool that is widely used in Europe, if we can customize it and bring it for this particular region. So those sorts of decision support system could help, people to understand, or policymakers to understand which, action to take, what is the cost-effective action. And then we could, use those scientific evidences, like we saw in my presentation earlier, like measuring black carbon at an altitude of 5,000 meters, measuring ozone within the region, which is as a tropical country, there's ample enough of photochemical production. So understanding the science, the modeling the science, and then making it easy for the policymakers. That could be one. The other step could be on the solutions aspect. Yes, a lot of solutions exist, but customizing those solutions for the particular local area. Can be provincial, can be district oriented, can be national oriented. So understanding that aspect and having a effective implementation in those regions. There are some really good examples in the region, like say some activities have succeeded well in India. Let's say in under the National Clean Air Program. Some sectoral pollution, strategies have succeeded a lot. So how they have succeeded, what has been the reason behind it, if that can be shared with other neighboring countries like you mentioned. So that could enhance the implementation capacity within the region. And then the third could be the financing pillar, where of course as developmental agencies or funders, donors, we need those funds. But at the same time, a lot of fund or ownership comes through governments, unless and until government owns them. So how do we make a financial resource mapping for them? That what is internally present with them, how they can use it, how they can best make utilization of those for sectoral abatement. So I think that is something I would like to vision for the future if it comes to this region.
Thank you. A good wish list. And good luck with that. So Sirapong, we talked a little bit in your previous remarks about the plans that you have on the climate side and on the air pollution side in parallel. How do you think about integrating them, and how easy or difficult is that?
Integrate between climate change and air pollution.
Yeah, and also the national and local levels. Thank you.
So I think very important that to linkage the national policy to local level, that as I present before about the system. Not only the system, in Thailand we have the provincial office that everything we try to make a same view and same consensus of every provincial office, like the system that provide the data. In Thailand, we have 77 provinces, so that if they use different data, how the focal point, so that very important that have to link the national level to local. Another point is I do agree with Dr. Verma about the cost, but in local community, I think the cost of adaptation in their life, we should address. And after we address this cost related to climate change and air pollution, so we can link to the NAP, the National Adaptation Plan. So it will show the output in the big view. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Yeah, something that is, I think, unique to some of the super pollutants is the implications for adaptation as well as mitigation, especially black carbon. So it's a really good additional point that you've brought into the discussion there. And so finishing with Clyde, you've said that it's just about scaling. There is no challenge on the finance, and there is no challenge on the technology. So can you tell us? Well, I'm going to ask a follow-up question on that one, because it would be great to hear what you see as the best proven scalable solutions or best practices on super pollutants that you would love for ADB to fund at scale.
So you're basically saying, which of your children would you like to select?
Yes, please. You can select up to 3.
I think first of all, I should encourage everyone to go to the session tomorrow where we were talking about shared responsibility across Asian, and the Blue Skies project leader Karma is speaking, and it's all focused on shared responsibility. So I'm duty bound to do sales pitch for my colleagues, but so that's that.
How's the time then?
Yeah. So, but as I have time to think about the solutions, so I think for me one of the biggest opportunities is to activate citizen science here, and we've seen IQ air and also air gradient and lots of those opportunities, which is giving the opportunity to bring it down to a local level so that we have an understanding of the public. Because I think the challenges we're all talking about are how do we make sure that this is something which we all have shared responsibilities. And the success, I started my career in health, so therefore always the most successful thing about in health was how do we get public understanding around that. So I think that is crucial. And we're at that point where technology is accessible and cheap to do it. Sensors are cheap. Mm-hmm. We can do everything on our phone, which means that we're able, all of us can be climate scientists now because we have the ability around that. So for me, that's really, really one of the most interesting things that we're now seeing data models which don't need a quantum computer which can do it. So that for me is exciting. I'm a Earth observation nerd, so I always love Earth observations. But again, that is interweb with the challenges which we have, and also that is becoming more and more available. So that's where I made a specific point to mention MRV, because if we can't measure it and we can't report it, it's not going to get funded. Mm-hmm. So that's where I am. So I'm probably more on the digital side rather than on the other aspects, because I see digital requires less of infrastructure and we can get it done quickly and we can get impact and we get results which then can lead the story into infrastructure.
Thank you. Great example. So throwing it open now, we've got time for a couple of questions, which I will take together. If you could keep your question brief, thank you. There's one over here, first of all, and one down the front. Tell us briefly who you are, and if your question is directed towards a particular individual,
Sure.
let us know whom. Thank you.
I'm Chetan Bhattacharjee. I'm a journalist and I'm also a climate comms consultant. And my question is primarily for Clyde. Yeah, dig yourself further into a hole. But I think the question is basically this, that yes, we do require a lot of local level evidence and a lot of local level cost benefit analysis to implement policy. But in a place like Delhi, where I'm from and where some other folks over here are also from, open burning is a rampant, not just in Delhi, but in that entire region, open burning is a rampant practice, right? To your point about citizen journalists, citizen scientists, there are a lot of citizens who are concerned about this and they started monitoring this also. In this kind of situation, what is the kind of role that organizations such as yours can play, where you don't necessarily need the data, you know open burning is terrible, you know it's everywhere. How can you, speed up the process of cutting it down?
Thank you. So we'll come to you in a second, Clyde. I'm just going to take one more question.
Sure. I'm Adil. I'm a researcher from India. My question is to Patrick and Parth, both of you can answer, is like, what are the main, let's say, top 3 ingredients from, let's say, moving from declaration or action plans to action on ground, basically? We have seen, like you mentioned about funding as a key aspect, but we have seen in some of the cities where the funding is there, but the actions on ground were not there. So if you can give some insights on what are the other ingredients that are required for actions on ground. Yeah.
Thank you for a declaration and then for actions. Thank you. So we go to Clyde first.
Thank you for not asking me a finance question. So I completely understand. I lived 3 years in India, so I know that very well the challenges around that. And what you're asking is probably the most difficult thing, is how do we activate behavior change? And I would love to say there's a magic bullet for behavior change, but there isn't. And it's very contextualized into the local area. So you have to work on what are the ways that we can make this important for the people who are doing the open burning. And I think in India we're starting to see other initiatives, especially in the wash area and sanitation, which we have seen that there's been behavioral changes and there's lessons which can be learned in India around those projects and how, especially as some of the initiatives the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation had done around sanitation, what lessons they learned which are transferable around that. Behavior change is the hardest bit. Really, really, really difficult. It's not easy, and it requires a multitude of different aspects. Like I was talking to their gradient guys, and they were saying that in Laos, because they have if you look at their app, it's got, I've smoked this amount of cigarettes. In Laos, that doesn't work because people are going, yeah, cigarettes are not that bad, so they're not. So that doesn't work in a Lao context, but it might work in another context. So for me, there's a multitude of different ways of doing it, but it involves, based at a community level, and us as an organization, we need to learn how we can use the information better. And I'm a big believer, if you go on our website, all the reports I produce are not reports. They're accessible, they're in language which people can use. So we need to go down and use that kind of level in behavior change. But behavior change is really, really, really hard. And I wish I had a better answer, but it just takes a multitude of different experiments and a willingness to try new and different things, but also looking at different sectors. What has worked in health? What has worked in other elements which we can then use for it? And I think that's where the benefit we're talking here, we need to share information better, because there may be something someone has tried in Nepal which has worked, but we have to experiment and we have to use that. And our role within ADB is how do we create that environment so that we can enable those policy and behavioral change.
Thanks, Clyde. Thank
So
you.
that wasn't succinct.
Thank you. And over to Patrick. Top 3 actions for regional declaration.
Right. So I think the question was, why do we need declarations and what can be done to actually make sure that there's actions following these declarations? So I think, we need declarations to really streamline good approaches for air quality management in the region. I think the most important point is, and I agree with you there, that action is probably even more important. And I think this is very much about livelihoods and quality of life. So I would argue you have to make sure that whatever you suggest, there needs to be a good business plan. There needs to be the benefit for the people on the ground. And whatever we suggest, it shouldn't be too expensive. It shouldn't be too time-consuming. So I think it's really important to actually co-develop these solutions with the people on the ground to make sure that they really take it up and that it's socially acceptable. And to as well use the information they have probably used as well, through generations in terms of, there are some good examples that some of the more traditional approaches to farming, for example, do cut pollution as well, So, and I think we have to co-develop these solutions. And I would argue as well that we have to make sure as well that people understand that they have as well power and influence as consumers. If there is a choice to, for example, buy regular rice or burn-free rice, well, look into this. It's still, early stages, but there are options like this available. And I think, like we've seen in Europe, concentrate on this kind of consumer power as well. I think that would be another point.
Thank you. Partha, anything to add to that list?
Not largely to add, but also to echo at the same time that, first thing, while we talk about solutions, I think we also have to look inwards. Are we or are our families interested not to buy 4 cars and just manage in 1 car so that, we don't put the transport burden on the road? So a lot has to be also looked inwards also. That is where I would say, we have to focus. And second would also be that, when we are providing solutions, like Patrick rightly said, it should not be, that a country cannot develop. We have to provide solutions which will help them develop at the same time, probably, reduce the cost as well as reduce the pollution. I think I'll stay there.
Thank you very much. Thank you to all of our panelists. And I invite you to take your seats.
Thank you very much. Maybe could you stand there for a quick photo together before we conclude our session with the closing remarks? So the first batch would be the speakers, also with you, Ms. Kun Jane. Okay, still stand here. Kun Avalo, maybe another batch of photo. So Kun Avalo, Kun Philip, and Kun Shirish, for the whole group. Okay, thank you so much. Maybe Kun Philip and Kun Shirish, to conclude our session with your closing remark. Okay, do you want? Yeah, please. And maybe Kun Shirish together. So thank you so much. So we will have to conclude our session 2 final closing remarks. The first one will be Kun Philip Blunet, the counselor and head of Cooperation Regional Thematic Hub in Bangkok from Swiss Agency of Development and Cooperation SDC. So the floor is yours, Kun Philip.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you so much. I'm pleased to give a few closing words on behalf of the Swiss Agency for Development and Cooperation. And it's been a very rich session. So at the outset, I just want to thank all the speakers for their excellent presentations and inputs. Clean Air Fund and EC Mod, I think, laid out very compellingly how super pollutant mitigation is a development priority and is central to meeting the SDGs and the 2030 agenda, with multiple benefits: protecting health, protecting livelihoods, protecting vulnerable communities and ecosystems. So it's really a development issue. And it impacts all the way to the Himalayan glaciers. So it's interesting to also see that connection that was made there. And super pollutant mitigation can also advance climate goals in a cost-effective way. And like Jane said, it can be an emergency brake on climate change, complementary to our efforts to reduce CO2 emissions. And the other good news, like Alvaro said, is that we have solutions. And it was good to hear from ADB what they have in the pipeline and that the funding is there. And if you have a good solution, or if you need a good solution, Clyde can matchmake you and find you a partner. So drop him a line. And I was also, just on a side note, very glad to hear that the topic of cooling come up quite prominently, which is also one of the areas that we're working on, especially with an angle on passive cooling in India and elsewhere. Kun Siripong of the Ministry of Environment and Climate Change of Thailand illustrated very well the importance of close integration between climate and clean air policies in order to reap the benefits from synergies that won't always happen by chance, but can happen by design between climate and clean air policies. And partnership and implementation matter to move from dialogue to delivery. Through regional cooperation, knowledge sharing, and practical national action, we can accelerate integrated climate and clean air solutions and turn today's discussions into sustained impact. Patrick from GIZ explained well how the Sekai project will foster this kind of collaboration all the way from the ASEAN level to the farms and the forests in the Mekong region. And we're very glad to be partnering with Germany and GIZ in this effort for Southeast Asia. And finally, it's great to have philanthropy on board and to see that philanthropy is now mobilizing very significant resources for super pollutant mitigation. So I'm delighted to hand it over to Shirish from the Clean Air Fund to wrap it up.